Hey guys, and welcome back to Tats Plus. So in this part we're going to create the USB ports that go inside the case, and I'll just show you where. So you remember we cut these holes for the USBs, and we're just going to finish this off by actually adding in the USB holes here, and this is a Firewire, but it's basically the same method. So I'll just show you how I make one of the USBs, and then you can duplicate them along. For the jack plugs, we're just going to use a simple cylinder, and the Firewire is basically exactly the same as the USB, it just has a different shape. So once you know the process of creating the USB, it should be pretty easy to create a Firewire as well. So let's start off with a cube, and I'm just going to scale it roughly. And actually, before we start, I will just show you what we're actually making. So I just got this reference of Google, and as you can see, this is the USB. So we're going to create this metal frame that goes around, and there are these 4 little hooks on the top and the bottom, and then one on each side. And there's this plastic USB that actually reads in our data from the USB drive. So I'm just going to block out the main shape first, roughly. Just roughly in proportion, not worrying about too much if it's actually going to fit yet. I'll make sure that it fits later on. And then let's use our insert edge loop to go ahead and split this up. So first I'm going to add in the multiple edge loops so we can create the outer frame for this. So multiple edge loops 2, roughly the thickness that I want, and I'm going to add 2 again on this end, and then scale those out as well, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to my insert edge loop tool with the setting box and make sure that we have multiple edge loops set and only one number of edges. And what this allows us to do is that whenever we click on an edge, it will go ahead and add it in the center. Okay, so I'm going to add one there, there, and there to split this up. And also I'm going to, if this would stop freaking out, I'll add one, and it still doesn't want to do it. So I'm going to add one on these corners as well, because I'm going to do a manual bevel basically. Okay, so I add one there and there as well. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and delete all of these faces because it's roughly symmetrical. So just to save us some time, I'm going to delete all of those faces. And then let's go ahead and extrude this one in, which will give us the depth that we need. Okay, and then we can go ahead and grab these faces and delete them. Oops, I don't want to delete that face. Okay. So now that we have these two, let's go ahead and create that sort of hook on the top that we need. So I'm going to use the insert edge loop tool again with the option box, and I'm going to reset this. And I'm going to add one roughly here, and also one roughly here. Before we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead and add in our bevel. And let me just move the camera out of the way. Okay, so the reason why we added these in is just so you can create a fast manual bevel. So I'm just going to select that vertex, move that down, drag it in a bit, and select the corner one, drag it in roughly there, and do the same thing with this to create a curve going on. Okay, and again, I could tweak this forever, but I really don't want to spend too much time on it. And you'll see when we smooth it, that will look fairly nice. Okay, so let's crack on with this hooky thing. I'm going to select 2 of them faces and then extrude them. So I'm going to move it out a little bit, then rotate and maybe push it this way a tad, and then just keep doing that to create this sort of curve. Okay, and there are probably 100 different ways of doing this. I'm just showing you guys this one. Okay, so I'm just rotating, moving, I'm trying to keep this curve going here quite nicely. Okay, so I think I should do. And I'm going to come into my top view to see how thick we are. Okay, and this is going to be the last one. So now I'm going to come to the above, and we can start probably from somewhere around here, extrude it again, and we just need to go ahead and start scaling this in a little bit, and maybe do it one more time, like so. Okay, that looks great. Cool, so now that's done, we need to go ahead and do the same thing on the side, and remember we cut this in half. So what I'm going to do is we'll probably just cheat and duplicate that part. So go back to Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'm going to add an edge across here, and then let's select all of these faces as we'll duplicate them. Okay, and go to Edit Mesh, Duplicate Face, and just close this. Make sure we go to Edit, Delete All by Type History, and also make sure that we center the pivot. And now if I select it, I can move it out of the way. Okay, let's rotate 90. And again, I'm going to go ahead and have to cut this guy in half. So I'm going to use the Insert Edge Loop tool again, but make sure that we go to multiple edge loops and one. Oops. And I will add one exactly in the center. And make sure I reset it. Go to faces and delete all of those, as I only need half. Okay, so now that's done, what I'm going to do is select my pivot, and I'm going to snap it down to this corner, and then select that corner, or select the object and vertex snap it to this, like so. Okay. And now we're going to select all of these guys. As we need to go ahead and just push this out a little bit. And make sure we only have the ones that we need selected. And actually we don't need that either. Now I'm going to push this back all the way to the center of here. Okay. And then select all of these apart from the end ones, and push them back all the way to there, and then select these two, select that axis and snap it. Okay, and maybe we need to move these a little bit, like so. Cool. So once that's done, we can delete these two faces. I'm going to select these vertices and just snap them here. Okay. And now looking at this, this actually seems to be a bit too big. So I'm going to select all of these. Well, actually, let's combine them first. So I'm going to select both of these meshes and then go to Mesh, Combine. Now again, delete all by type history and select all of these verts here and merge them together. And now I can select all of these verts, and I think I'll just go ahead and squish them in a little bit. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead, and now we have sort of two options if you're thinking ahead. We can either add in all the supporting edges now and then duplicate them over, which would probably be the best way of doing this. So I think that's what we're going to do. Or we could duplicate this around, merge it all together, and then add in the supporting edges, which would probably be slower. So I think we're going to add in all the supporting edges now and then duplicate it over. Alright. Now my only concern is, actually let's do the bottom half first, because the bottom is actually not symmetrical. So I'm going to duplicate that and then center pivot, move out of the way, and then make sure we scale it in Z-1. Alright, and basically on the bottom, this hook is exactly in the center, so we just need to go ahead and move that basically. So I'm going to select all of these verts and move it out here. Alright, and then select all of those guys and snap that to the center to make sure that they line up. And then I'm going to select these vertices that I know that are straight and snap those there as well. Alright, now we can delete these faces as we don't need these anymore. And now you notice that we just need to add in this edge going down so we can hook them up together. So I'm just going to use the insert edge loop tool, and I'm going to add it in the center here just to make sure that it doesn't interact with this curve. And I'll just select this vertex and snap it down. And if you wanted to make it a little bit cleaner, you can do this, I guess. Okay, so once that's done, let's go into our pivot mode and snap the pivot to here. And that will allow us to go ahead and snap these guys together like so. Okay, cool. So once we're at this stage, now you can merge these two together, and then again delete the history, select all the verts in the center and merge them together. Okay, so now all we need to do is basically duplicate this over and merge it, and it will be all fine. So let's go ahead and add in the supporting edges for this so it will smooth properly. Okay, so once we blocked everything out, or what we need, now what we need to do is add in the supporting edges. And we have two options. We either do it now, adding the supporting edges, and then we'll duplicate it over and then merge everything together, or we can duplicate it over now and then add in the supporting edges, but it will probably take a bit more time as we would have to work on the other half as well. So let's go ahead and add in the supporting edges for this half, and we'll have to do some, you'll have to rewire some of the edge flow, but it shouldn't be an issue. So I'm going to add two here on the bottom or the top, and then I'll start adding these in as well. So you should be pretty used to adding these supporting edges in now. You'll probably run into some issues if you start working on your personal projects as to the edge flow, but you should be able to, after watching this whole series, you should have enough experience to know how to rewire them and without having any issues and so on. Okay, so I'm adding these in. Now for these ones, we can add them in here, and as you can see, it will flow all the way there, and it's not actually a problem. We could go ahead and tie them off somewhere down here or somewhere else, but it's really not going to cause us any issues. So the lazy way of doing it, we can really leave it and flow through the whole model. It's not going to cause any issues really. So to save time, I'm not going to rewire those, as it's not going to cause any problems. And then I'll also add two more here just to split up this long face. So once those are in, let's add two here as well. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now our main issue is going to be a crosshair, as you can see, as we want this to be smooth. Now you'll see that the supporting edge that we added in here flows all the way down here, and we really don't want that to happen, as it will sharpen out this corner that we want it to be smooth. So we're going to have to rewire this slightly, but what I'm going to go ahead and do first is add in this supporting edge here and then do the rewiring now. So the first step that I'm going to do is, what I want is for this face to flow around here. As you can see, that's why I added in this supporting edge. So the first step is I'm going to go ahead and cut this edge that I don't need. So this one. And once I cut that, I'm going to go ahead, or delete that, I'm going to go ahead and cut this to that vertex there. So I'm just going to use my interactive split and split there, and do the same thing for the bottom, so don't forget that. Okay, so from there to there, and now I can easily go ahead and delete the other half of this edge loop as well, like so. Okay, so now we'll notice that this will flow around here instead of down on the side of the corner. Okay, so that's all nice and dandy. Let's see if I need to add in support edges here, and we do. So I'm just going to use the insert edge loop tool and add a double here and add a double here as well. Okay, so it should be fine. So let's move on to the side, add in a double here as well. And we already have this flown across, so that's all good. So let's add this one in, and that shouldn't be an issue. And also let's have a look and see how this moves. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Let's check out this one. Okay, so I'm sorry about that, my computer just freaked out a little bit. So everything seems fine here that we just done. Let's go ahead and carry on adding in the supporting edges that we need. Okay, so we'll need one here. And again, we can add these in here without any issues whatsoever. So we can leave these going across the mesh. And add one here as well. We could sort of rewire these as well, but there isn't any need to do that really. It will still work perfectly fine. I just noticed this edge here, which is freaking out for some reason. So I'm just gonna select that and delete. And I'm just gonna double check in the top view for this. And let me just move out the camera again, sorry. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure that this edge here is actually straight. So I'm just gonna move these verts up until it is straight, just to make sure that it's not gonna cause any issues later on. Okay, so now you'll notice that this edge is going down here again, so we're going to have to do the same thing that we did on the other side. First, like I said, I'm going to add in this edge, and then select that, go down to the bottom side and select that. Okay, make sure you double click and delete that edge, and then now I can go ahead and cut this across like we did on the other side. And let's do the same thing on the bottom as well. And now we can delete this as well that we don't need anymore. Okay, so that's great. It's seems like this edge seemed to have disappeared, so let me just add that in. So I'm just going to use the interactive split, and then again use the interactive split here to connect this up, because that edge somehow managed to have disappeared. And then let's do the same thing on the bottom if it is missing, and that seems to be fine. Cool. So let's add the supporting edge there, and add 2, and make sure that we add it on this half as well. Okay, so it looks pretty good. I think we're nearly finished now. So this one will have its supporting edges apart from this one. And I think we're pretty much finished. Let me just see around here. You need to add it in on the top here. And one more for this corner here, and we're done. Great, so let's go ahead and smooth this and check out our mesh, make sure that we're not getting any issues whatsoever. Okay, so that corner looks fine, this corner looks fine. Okay, that looks great, so let's go ahead and quickly duplicate this over. So I'm going to go ahead and center pivot so I see where it is, and then I'm going to snap it down to here. There we go. And then duplicate this and leave it where it is, x-1. Select both of them, mesh combine, and then edit, delete all by type history. Select all of the middle vertices in the top view, probably would be easiest. Okay, merge those with a small threshold. Smooth to make sure everything is fine. And as our USB. All we need to do now is add in the sort of rectangle in the center. And you could go ahead and make that part a bit more detailed. I'm not going to on the camera for the time's sake, as it's not a very complicated thing to do. So I'm just going to add this in as a placeholder for that, and I might go ahead and add it in as like if I have extra time. So I'll just leave that there as it is as a placeholder for the little USB thing. Okay, I'm not even going to add in extra bits. So now I'm going to group these two together, and let's go ahead and put this into our USB hole quick, and then we'll wrap this part up right here. So I'm just going to select in the center and then snap it roughly in the right place, and as you can see it's a bit too big, so let's rotate into degrees, and let's scale this down. Let's go into a top view, zoom in a bit like so, maybe scale it up a bit more, scale it this way, so I'm paying attention to the main outline, not to the clippy things, as we can modify them later on. And that looks roughly the right size, and now I'm just going to push this in and then rotate so it lines up, something like that. Okay, and let's just move it this way a tiny bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. You can go ahead and modify these clippy things, so actually you can see the little corner there. I'm not going to in this tutorial as I don't want to bore you guys to death with it. So that looks pretty good actually. It looks like a little USB thing, and obviously you can go ahead and duplicate these along for the other holes as well. So let's just quickly do that. Okay, and there's the last one as well. That looks really good. Okay, so you would use the same technique to create the Firewire, and the other USB is exactly the same as one of these. And I will just add a small cylinder here, so you guys can finish it off in your own time.